I am 25 years old. The number of candles on this cake indicates that I am 26 years old. 1 year too many.
No, you're 26 years old today.
Yep, that's right, 26!
He's 26, all right.
He's 26, all right.
Yeah, but he certainly looks 26.
26?
Yes, 26.
Would everyone stop saying my age out loud?
Some sexual fetishes are more well known than others. This, in turn, reflects the prevalence and notoriety of the phenomenon. Cross-dressers, pedophiles, and necrophiles have been the butts of jokes and the subject of disgusted fascination for years. But what of more recent fetishes? Many furries argue that their interest in anthropomorphic animals is asexual, no different than an interest in mecha robots or gardening. Recently, negative attention has been brought onto the community through social media and entertainment coverage. However, furries have been around, in the form we now refer to them as, for quite some time. As defined by Sue and Bailey and Furry Phenomenon, characterizing sexual orientation, sexual motivation, and erotic target identity inversions in male furries. Furries are individuals who are especially interested in anthropomorphic or cartoon animals. They often strongly identify with anthropomorphic animals and create personas, identities of themselves as those anthropomorphic animals. Some practice fursuiting or wearing costumes that resemble anthropomorphic animals. Although anthropomorphic stories and cartoons have existed for quite a long time, the term furry was first used in fanzines in the 1980s and became widespread by the 1990s. Defined in the Yarth Reviews, a fanzine currently immortalized online, as the organized appreciation and dissemination of art and prose regarding furries or fictional mammalian anthropomorphic characters. For most furries, this affiliation exists only online and is centered in internet third spaces and private communities, where personas and engaging with fan art is most common. Less common, but more visible, are those who engage in real-life meetups and fursuiting, which is akin to cosplay in terms of the cost of materials and quality of the product. There exists a stigma against those who identify as furries, creating an insular community which both centers around identifying as a furry, as well as an ongoing shame of having this affiliation identified by others. This is because, despite claims to the contrary, being a furry is overwhelmingly sexual in nature and straddles a line that brings many uncomfortably close to bestiality, otherwise known as zoophilia. Many argue that fiction and reality are separate things, but fail to recognize how fantasy can impact behavior. Research has shown that pornography leads to escalation to maintain the same high, requiring more and more extreme imagery to receive the same result. The claim that pedophiles are less likely to make contact with a child if they use a proxy, be it a child-shaped doll or real or falsified child sexual abuse materials, is false. Pornography, and especially paraphilic pornography, plays a strong role in shaping individuals' sexual identity and behaviors.
What is paraphilia? I'm Dr. Sanjaya, medical professor and sexologist. Let's talk about this. A paraphilia is a condition in which someone's sexual arousal and gratification depend on fantasizing about and or engaging in extreme, atypical sexual behaviors. It's considered a disorder when it causes distress or threatens to harm someone else. Paraphilias can revolve around specific objects or behaviors, and someone with a paraphilia is dependent on that object or behavior for sexual satisfaction. A lot of people have out-of-the-box fetishes or kinks, but this is not the same as a paraphilia. A paraphilia is only diagnosed if it negatively impacts someone's ability to function in everyday life or causes harm to another person. Did this surprise you? Follow me for more sex education and tips.
Paraphilias come in clusters, and as reported in Elbert et al.'s Child Pornography Possession/Receipt Offenders, Developing a Forensic Profile, meta-analytic research reported that child pornography offenders have significantly higher paraphilic disorders than other sexual offenders, and the preponderance of this relates to pedophilia. Our profile confirmed the salience of pedophilia, but also shows that the paraphilic repertoire is more complex and also involves transvestic fetishism and pornography addiction. This suggests that the paraphilic drivers of child pornography consumption are not simply driven by sexual attraction to children, but are also related to arousal to cross-dressing that likely reflects uncertainty about the individual's sexual orientation. For example, epidemiological research on transvestic fetishism found that the same-sex sexual experiences and high pornography use were significant correlates. In other words, being into one fetish or paraphilia typically correlates with others. For pedophilia, there's often an overlap with autogynephilia.
I do, but it was a long time ago. So instead of finding that video, I'm just gonna tell you. Age play is a kink where someone role plays as an age that they are not. So it could be older, it could be younger. What gets all of the attention is younger. And the subspace of somebody age playing younger is usually called little space. I'm not even gonna get into all of the different meanings. That is the only one we are talking about in this video. I hope that this answers your question.
If this is the case, then it stands to reason that there is an overlap between zoophilia and furry identification. The continued usage of sexual furry content can also be problematic and fuel this paraphilia, as Elbert reported that viewing child pornography increases the likelihood of an individual offending. Reasons include that the pornography normalizes and or legitimizes the sexual interest in minors, as well as that pornography might eventually cease to satisfy the user. As defined by Sendler, zoophilia is a paraphilia defined as an intense interest in having sexual contact with animals. However, it is commonly reported on as bestiality, and there have been several high-profile cases which keep the topic in the news. In May of 2024, the Sydney Morning Herald reported on the arrest of a man known as Beast Boy, who published over 500 videos online illustrating sexual abuse of various animals including dogs, sheep, goats, and chickens. One video featured a dead kangaroo. The same man also was found in possession of child sexual abuse materials. The link between abuse and zoophilia is stronger than that of most paraphilias, as one study found that nearly 1/3 of animal sex offenders also sexually offended children and adults. It makes sense for those who consider themselves furries to be aware of the implications of that identification, but as of recently, many have become more and more open regarding this alignment, as well as with outright acknowledgement of their sexual proclivities. Perhaps those with a sexual attraction to animals have felt emboldened. Animals, after all, cannot talk back about their abuse or report it. In Canada, a ruling by the Supreme Court in 2016 found that sex acts with animals are illegal in Canada so long as there is no penetration involved. In many countries, bestiality isn't illegal, especially if harm to the animal cannot be proven. Bestiality porn is illegal in Germany, but sex with animals isn't. Animal brothels exist in Denmark and are explicitly legal in Finland and Hungary. Meanwhile, 45% of Brazilian men with penile cancer admitted to having sex with animals. 4 states in the US have yet to ban it, and Mexico is well known for its donkey shows, where enslaved women are forced to commit bestiality with a donkey.
Wait a goddamn minute. Now, if you're easily bothered, I'm gonna need you to scroll up now. Trust me on this one. The story begins with a man named Kenneth Pinion, who actually suffered a motorcycle incident which killed some sensation in the nether regions. As a result, Kenneth kind of found other ways to pleasure himself, basically through his starfish. He discovered a group online called the Zoos. That's where he met Michael Tate, a 54-year-old truck driver. Tate, Pinion, and a few others would meet up at a 20-acre farm in Seattle and allow these horses to basically violate their starfish while they videotape it. In 2005, Tate was recording Mr. Hands on one of the horses, and I guess the horse went a little too hard in the taint, and it ended up perforating Mr. Hands' colon. He ended up passing away due to his injuries. At the time, there were no laws against bestiality in Seattle, but that changed after this shit. You can Google Mr. Hands. Oh well!
Regarding furry specifically, Sue and Bailey sought to gather more empirical research on the phenomenon, as due to the shame and lack of exposure, few studies have been conducted on the topic. Their study surveyed 334 male furries recruited from the internet about their sexual orientation, sexual motivation, and sexual interests, and found that a large majority of our sample reported non-heterosexual identities, 84%, and some degree of sexual motivation for being furries, 99%. Interestingly, they compared being a furry to autogynephilia, as both center around the desire to change appearance and to become the object of attraction. This can further be illustrated in kinks like age play, where a person pretends to be a different age and often gets off sexually to the experience. Although many may feel uncomfortable with these paraphilias, due to recent so-called sex positivity, which aims to criticize anyone who is not in full support of kinks and any kind of getting off, many have a hard time verbalizing why exactly they are uncomfortable, besides these sexual proclivities being weird or uncommon. This is because the object they are attracted to becomes what they wish to mimic. Many who dress up or create personas tend to be attracted to the gender and species of their persona, similarly to autogynephilia, as they are getting off to pretending to be the object of their attraction. This is what Sue and Bailey call erotic target identity inversion, which occurs when an external erotic target, for example a woman, is located within a man's own body, which can motivate men to change their appearance and behavior to become more like their internalized erotic targets. For those attracted to women, it manifests in cross-dressing and autogynephilia.
Hiya, lovelies. Happy Halloween. It's me, Jory. How you doing? How you feeling? Today, I want to talk about how does my trans identity align with me being a lesbian?
He's got an erection! What the hell is wrong with you people?
For those to children, age play, diapers, acting young. And for those attracted to animals, exactly are people manifesting sexual attraction in this manner? Sue and Bailey believe that social influences play a large role, as they found that the average age at which participants reported they had become furries was 14.97 years, with the majority of participants being in the ages of 11 to 15 years old when they became furries. An additional 89, 26.7%, were in the ages of 16 to 20 years old. The most common manner in which they became furries was in some context of seeking or discovering online pornography featuring anthropomorphic animals. Mentioned by 127, 41.2% of 308 participants who provided a response to this open-ended item. The next most common manner in which they became furries, mentioned by 93, or 30.2% of participants, involved discovering or otherwise hearing about furries or the furry community through art, stories, or posts online. One could argue that kinks have become more normalized because of the inclusion of thinly disguised sexual kinks in children's media, though there have been few studies on the topic to date. The majority of furries in the sample were bisexual or gay, with only 15% identifying as straight. About 70% identified themselves as single, and 20% reported a close relationship, of which 77% were with men and 1% with a horse. The greatest takeaway from their study was confirmation that being a furry has a sexual motivation, as 96.1% reported that their interest in being furries was sexual to some degree. Other studies have found similar results. While the reach and acceptance of furries as an unchangeable identity is still far from reality, we can note the rising acceptance or attempts at acceptance from other sexual fetish groups. The creation of identity and community around these attractions also hints at attempts to normalize and gain acceptance in a wider community. Just as autogynephilia has gained acceptance through rebranding as having a female soul, it is not so inconceivable that down the line, furries might find a way to rebrand personas or attraction to animals as innate and inhumane to deny. If pedophiles can do it, so can they. And the overlap across the groups, from autogynephilia to pedophilia to furries, certainly speaks to the dedication and ranks there, if they really chose to do so. Additionally, the overlap of paraphilias draws into question the safety of minors in these spaces, as well as the role that socialization may play in what appears to be increasing numbers of those with erotic target identity inversion and sexual dysfunctions. Although there is less research on the topic, one can find similarities in women who identify as gay men after having a history of participating in yaoi or shipping communities. Evidently, part of these paraphilias appears to exist before socialization comes into play, but the growing numbers in these communities warns of the danger of normalizing them as acceptable deviations of human behavior, instead of as the concerning paraphilias that they are. This, dear viewers, is where we part. I read 4 papers on furries for you. I wish my computer and my brain had bleach. Also, the research that I had to do on bestiality and zoophilia. First off, it was really hard to find the right terms to get papers on this and to avoid being shown disgusting, awful things. But what really got me was I was reading on basically a pro-sex positivity website that listed out more information about zoophilia and how legal it is around the world. Why? Why is that an option? Why? I don't understand. I don't like it. I don't like that I had to learn that. But to be fair, sometimes doing research or writing about these very specific things gets me out of a writing slump, and this one definitely did. I pumped it out in like 2 days. All I can say is that right now I'm just recording the audio, so I'm not looking forward to having to find TikToks to go with this. I considered doing a section on bronies, but I don't want to. I may very well in the future, but I feel like I've done enough torture for myself this week. I am interested in kind of covering more things and sexual deviations, I guess. Age play. For one thing, I'm really annoyed with how people just add play to the end of stuff to make it sound less creepy and weird. If you instead said, there is a group of people who get off to pretending to be children and shitting in their own diapers, that's more accurate than being like, age play. But I also would like that topic to kind of coincide with a video on Lolita, which is one of my favorite novels, and I read it really, really young, and so every time that I reread it, I kind of gleaned more and more and understood better and better. And I feel like a lot of people are stupid and do not understand the text, and I also feel like it's a great story, a great novel to use to compare the difference of how some people cover topics and sexualize them versus how you can cover dark topics without making them fetishistic, if that makes sense. For example, in fan fiction, AO3 is a very hands-off, anything goes type of deal, and so you'll see a lot of fan fiction, especially in certain fandoms, especially in recent fandoms, for literal bestiality or pedophilic stories. And there are some that are older, like I'm talking when I was younger and first reading, that was closer to 2010, 2015, that kind of era, where they'll talk about those things, but you don't get the sense that you're there to, that the writer wants you to get off to the topic. It's because they're exploring the experience of abuse. Anyhow, this is a very long tangent, but I would like to go discuss that sometime soon. We'll see how that happens. Anyhow, if you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.